South Korea rose through smart decisions. Venezuela collapsed through bad ones. But then there's Portugal, a country that followed the playbook perfectly, made all the right moves, and is now watching those very decisions begin to unravel. To attract foreign investment and boost tourism, Portugal opened its doors to the world. It modernized and invited the wealthy, welcoming millions of tourists and digital nomads in a short period of time. And it worked. Tourism made Portugal a wealthy economy, not once, but twice. But now something strange is happening. Protests are growing, housing is vanishing, and entire neighborhoods have turned into short-term rentals. Did Portugal reinvent itself just to put its future at risk? How is the country going to handle these unexpected challenges? This is the story of how Portugal got everything right and why it's starting to backfire. How Portugal makes its money. With a GDP of $319 billion, Portugal is the 48th largest economy. While this may not seem very impressive by European standards, it's still noteworthy considering they do not have many natural resources. They do not possess any oil or gas reserves and have a very minimal reliance on minerals. With a median age of 46.4 years, Portugal's population is the 8th oldest in the world, which means there's not a lot of young population to work and generate revenue. The Iberian nation also does not have as much colonial wealth as other Western European countries gained from their former colonies. So how does Portugal make money? The short answer is tourism. In 2022, 8.9% of Portugal's GDP came directly from the tourism industry. This doesn't include revenues that came indirectly from tourists, such as those through the hospitality sector, local taxes, or money spent on shopping, etc. If we include those, tourism's contribution to national GDP rises to 39.5% in 2022, and now it has risen to 58.2% in 2024. Thus, we can start to establish that Portugal makes the majority of its money from tourism. But how did it start? How tourism became Portugal's backbone. Portugal transitioned from dictatorship to democracy during the mid-1970s. Despite being a former colonial power, it didn't have too much of the looted money. One can say that it started from zero. Up until the 1990s, an average worker in Portugal made $9 a day in today's money. It joined the EEC, predecessor of the EU, in 1986, and because of that, European funds started to pour in, and their economy steadily grew during the 1990s. During this period, Portugal failed to develop any competitive industry, like manufacturing or a high-skilled industry. By the 2000s, it started to focus on the tourism industry, marketing itself as a dream destination for global tourists. Portugal's revenue from tourism increased from $6 billion in 2000 to almost $22 billion in 2008. While tourism isn't as much of a job-creating industry, this rapid growth has led investors from all around Europe to start investing in resorts and other tourist destinations, producing some jobs in the construction and hospitality sectors. Tourism seemed to be Portugal's key to everlasting glory, but everything started to collapse during the 2008 global financial crisis. The crisis came to an end in 2010, but by then, the country's economic future seemed to be in ruins. The next few years, Portugal found itself at the epicenter of the European debt crisis. It required a €78 billion bailout from the EU and the IMF, and at that point, it seemed that the country might never be able to recover. By the way, if you enjoy learning more about today's economic stories, be sure to subscribe. It seemed impossible, but right after the crisis, Portugal started to rebuild its economy, and its key ingredient, once again, was tourism. They turned back to tourism in 2011, doing everything they did to reenact the success of the 1990s. They even added a golden visa scheme, a form of residence permit through investment for non-EU citizens, which they could get by investing €500,000 in various sectors, including real estate. Doing what they did earlier to attract tourists and introducing the golden visa were among the right decisions made by the country. Portugal managed to boost the economy, and the result was protests. How did tourism backfire in Portugal? When I told you that a large number of tourists visit Portugal, I left out the exact number so we could discuss it here. In 2023 alone, Portugal received 26.5 million tourists. While this number may look much lower than that of neighboring Spain and nearby France, which received 85 million and 100 million tourists respectively in the same year, the real difference is in comparison with the population. Portugal's population is 10.4 million, meaning for every local citizen, Portugal receives 2.5 tourists. This ratio is lower than 2 in France and Spain, meaning Portugal receives more tourists per capita. These tourists don't just bring money, they also consume residential resources. And because they're willing to spend much more on rent than the locals, many residential properties that could have been rented for locals turned into Airbnbs for tourists, causing a significant increase in prices. Buying a house has also become extremely difficult. 10 years ago, you could buy a home in Lisbon for €1,000 per square meter, However, today you'll need to pay €2,500 per square meter. House prices have also increased by 250% in the last decade, and they keep getting worse. While there may be several factors behind this, the Golden Visa is largely to blame. Basically, the Golden Visa is often viewed as a huge success, as it has brought in investment worth €7.5 billion since its launch in October 2012, most of which went into the real estate sector. Now here's the thing. While FDI is usually seen as a good thing for a nation and its economy, it's not always the case for FDI in the real estate sector. We've made an entire video on that. Anyways, most of these investments were made in the real estate sector, driving up the house prices for Portuguese citizens, and because many investors wanted to buy existing homes and not construct one, it's not like it helped in job creation. Furthermore, because the minimum threshold for investment was €500,000, many homeowners would list their homes for the said amount, even if their actual cost should have been lower, further driving up prices. Now that we've discussed some of the consequences faced by Portuguese people, let's move on to how some Portuguese suffered more than others. As it's obvious, tourists and investors usually don't visit or invest everywhere, but primarily look towards major hubs, which in Portugal's case were larger cities such as Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve. Because of this, the impact that would have been shared by everyone in the country was mostly faced by the residents of these cities. Take Lisbon, for instance. The capital has a population of 500,000, but it received more than 18 million tourists in 2023, meaning in addition to housing prices being increased by 150% in a decade, as we discussed earlier, the city's rental market would have been much cheaper. Portugal seems to be in a grave state, and the people obviously aren't happy. But the question is, can they ever get out of this? Let's find out. What comes after? Massive protests have been going on in the country for the last 2 years, and while the government hasn't been able to fully satisfy the protesters, they did do something. On October 6, 2023, Portugal's government introduced the Mais Habitacao law, significantly altering the Golden Visa program. The option of real estate investment has been taken off the list, meaning house prices will start coming down in the next few years. This twist now requires investors to invest in research activities, artistic production, and maintenance of cultural heritage, or form a company that creates at least 10 permanent jobs. While the government still refuses to do a crackdown on tourists using residential outlets or Airbnb, there is some hope. The government put a ban on issuing new licenses for short-term rentals. However, it was lifted in October 2024. Nonetheless, Porto's mayor, Rui Moreira, too, has acknowledged that the city needs to be selective about where it allows or avoids such rentals. If the government finds a way to limit short-term rentals, combined with the changes made in the Golden Visa program, Portugal will be able to fight the ongoing crisis and satisfy the needs of protesters. We hope that in no time, Portugal will be able to get out of the crisis and achieve the glorious state it was always supposed to be in. Soon, the Portuguese people will be happy and thriving in their beautiful country and will not be struggling to put a roof over their heads. But the government needs to find a way for that to happen, and realistically speaking, even if they do find a way, it will be a process that'll take several years to bring about a change. But that's just what we think. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you see Portugal getting out of this crisis anytime soon, or do you fear it will only get worse from here? Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to stay tuned.